Welcome to What's a Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Brennan McLaughlin, and this conversation is between myself, Mike Brode from PLRB, and Steve Badger from Zelle LLP. What's the scenario? An adjuster starts to close the file on a roofing claim. The adjuster had worked closely with the roofing contractor and saw the claim through to its resolution, with the contractor getting paid in full. Then the adjuster receives an invoice with a supplement from a company in another state. Upon calling the insured, they had no awareness of this company. Today, Steve Badger will address these and other topics as we continue our discussion on hot topics and hail claims. All right, welcome back, Steve. One topic we're really interested to hear about is something we saw on your LinkedIn. We wanted to hear more about the reclaim game.
The infamous reclaim game. Sure, we coined this phrase a number of years ago when we started seeing claims coming into our office that are obviously repeats from claims that had been filed years before. And the scenario is very obvious. We'll have either a hurricane down in Houston or a hailstorm in Dallas, and the insured will claim, because they've got a PA or lawyer in their ear, they'll claim the need for total roof replacement. We'll look at it and we'll say, no, it's not damaged at all. Or even if it is damaged, we can do a repair. So we end up going through the claim process. We end up in litigation. And what ultimately happens? We say, okay, let's resolve this one without a trial. So the case gets settled. We write a check to the insured. One would hope that the insured would go out and replace their roof that they claimed was damaged in the storm. Yeah. But guess what? You know where the story ends. They don't. They go to Disney World. And so they spend the money elsewhere. The roof does not get fixed. Let's fast forward 6 or so years. And a new storm comes along. They forget about the past one. But they say, okay, well, I didn't get enough to replace the roof, so I'll just submit a new claim. And there we are. We have a new claim for the same damage, either in total or part, that was already the subject to a previous claim. So we see so many of these. When I do my presentations, I have a really good example of this clearly happening. So our advice to our clients is very, very simple. When any claim comes in now, we immediately have to ask the insured, did you ever file a claim previously for this very same damage? That has to be part of the initial investigation right away. We can't just rely upon the industry reports that we get, the ISO forms or whatever that show claim history, because we always don't know. For example, if you get a past claim report into the underwriting people and they see, 2015 hail claim payment, $50,000. What does that underwriter think? He thinks the roof's been replaced. Okay, I got a 2015 roof replacement. Well, he doesn't know that perhaps it was a litigated matter and they went to Disney World. So we've got to make sure our adjusters on the front end immediately look to see if there were any prior claims, ask the insured, dig into it. And one of our strategies is as soon as a claim comes in, and I do this as a lawyer with every new matter that comes in my office, I immediately do two things. Number one, I get on my good friend Google Earth. I look at Google Earth or one of the other services, Near Map or one of the others available now, and I pull it up and I look at the historical images. I look at the history of the roof, and you learn so much. I look at Street View, so I can see the history of the roof, when the building was built, when the roof was replaced, when they had to put tarps out, various things. So we have that information at our fingertips right away. And the second thing is we go and we buy a $39 hail report. We all know about the cheap hail and wind reporting services for $39. You can get a hail history report. Now, they're not the be-all, end-all, but they're somewhere to start. And as soon as you get that report, you'll say, okay, look, there's 1.5 inches hail reported on our data loss. But look at this. Here's 4 prior storms of comparable size over the past 12 years. I got to ask some questions. Hey, Mr. Homeowner, did you submit a claim for any of those? Were you paid on any of those? If not, you didn't submit a claim. Why not? Were you aware? So all kinds of issues come up if a claim was filed, and of course, if a claim wasn't filed. Okay, when did this damage actually occur? And here's why I'll be quiet in a minute here, but this is just such a big issue now, is that we have to do this and understand this early on. Because if we go out there and we see it looks like 20 years of damage, but maybe there's a little bit of damage that's recent, we want to be nice, we'll buy the gutters and the little bit of drip edge. Well, as soon as we do that, what have we done? We've committed to a covered cause of loss during the policy period. We've opened coverage. And so we need to know going in the whole history of claims.
And I will mention, we'd be remiss if we didn't. You're a PLRB member. We have our historical weather data too that folks can dig into. And yeah, if you're a member, you've already paid your dues. So we don't even charge $39 for that. Just go check us out at plrb.org. But something else, Steve, our building codes folks are working on trying to pull permit histories, which maybe could help too, because generally if you truly did redo your total roof, you probably had to pull a permit to have somebody with the building codes department inspect it in your local vicinity, hopefully. So that might be something that could help adjusters too, that, hey, we looked at permits and maybe there's something out there, maybe didn't need a permit, but none was pulled, none was done.
And that's true. A lot of municipalities won't require it. And with my commercial roofs, the permit's wonderful because then I'll also know the value of the work usually, because they've got to put down the value of the work on the commercial jobs. But we learn a lot. And I do understand there's a number of AI sources out there that are pulling this information. And I'm really pleased to hear PLRB is doing that as one of its services for its members, because that's very valuable as well, along with the weather data and the claim data. So those are fundamental questions we have to ask now before we make that initial coverage decision.
So once coverage is established, even if there was sort of a gray area and maybe coverage was established for business reasons, that can kind of open the door. And I know that that's kind of where sometimes supplementing companies comes in. I know that's an issue as well.
Yeah, another one of my hot topics. I am not a fan of supplementing companies. And I said that carefully. I'm not a fan of supplementing companies.
Yeah.
I have no problem with supplements. If the brick and mortar contractor who put on the roof went out there and found 3 sheets of plywood that had to be in the deck that had to be replaced, or saw a couple of turtle vents that had to be replaced, and he did that work, actually did it, and took photos and sent you that pricing, we should pay that all day long. But what I have zero tolerance for are these third-party supplementing companies who show up after the work is done and they take the contractor's file and they now write a new inflated Xactimate estimate. They're strangers to the contract. They're off in Colorado somewhere working in a call center room, but they know how to write a good Xactimate estimate. They add a bunch of line items. They call us up. They pretend they're the contractor. They juice us for a few more bucks because of more line items, and then they take a contingency fee on that. That is not right. And my advice, and companies you should do what they think is best, but we have no obligation to speak with them. When they call, Mr. Supplementing Company, are you the contractor who did the work? Well, I'm their representative. No. Are you the contractor who was out there putting on the shingles? Well, we're hired by them. Where are you, by the way? Well, I'm in Colorado. Well, the job's in Topeka. Okay, I tell you what, we're going to call our insured. And if our insured believes that more is owed on this roof, we're happy to consider a supplemental claim submission from our insured for real work that was done. Mr. Supplementer, thank you. And we don't talk to them. We have no obligation to. They are twice removed from the insured. They're not even the contractor. They're a third party. So yeah, these people are out there. I see them at every conference. I'm going to another roofing conference as soon as we're done here. And I'll walk through the trade show and there will be a half dozen of them. And once in a while, I'll stop at a booth and give them a hard time.
Yeah. And, that's really where having that rapport with the insured is a good start. If you're in contact with the insured, building that relationship, they'll be able to, identify, hey, this is the contractor I've been working with the whole time or somebody I've never heard of. So
Yeah, or that was 6 months ago. I thought everything was done. Yeah, nobody's been out here since. Yeah.
Well, can we talk about that? Because that's a really important issue that comes up a lot. These contractors, who I mentioned, work under insurance proceeds contracts. Right? So think about this scenario because it happens every day. Insurance proceeds contract, contractor says, I'll work for whatever I can get out of the insurance company. So he takes our initial claim payment and he puts on the roof. And then he bundles it up and sends it to the supplementing company. Or he then invokes appraisal. At that time, does the insured still have any skin in the game? No, because the contractor agreed to do the work for what the stingy insurance company agreed to pay. Right? So the insured is happy. They paid their deductible, hopefully. They got their new roof. They don't care. So what we have in our office is a standard form letter 37 that we give to our clients. It says, Dear Mr. Insured, we've received this supplemental claim or we received this appraisal demand. We see your work is done. We see you are under an insurance proceeds contract. We trust you've given the insurance proceeds over to the contractor. If you believe any additional amount is owed on this claim, please let us know and we'll consider the supplemental payment. You know how often we hear from the insured in that situation? Zero, because they don't care. They've been properly paid by us. They got a roof put on, and it's the contractor who chose to take the risk of us not paying enough. We've taken care of our insured. Our insured has a roof. They've been paid enough to pay the contractor their legal obligation. So every time I talk to a room full of contractors, I say, I don't know why you knuckleheads agree to use insurance proceeds contracts. Stop it. Give me a retail price. Tell me your price and support why it's fair. Let me compare it to Xactimate. If it's fairly close, we're in the mix. All right, we don't want to avoid any, we want to avoid all the battles. Great. Because as I tell my insurance companies, remember, we go back to Xactimate for a minute. Xactimate is an average, basically. It's the center price. Some are above, some are below. So if a contractor is somewhere in the ballpark of Xactimate pricing and can substantiate why there may be a little more, we should have an open mind.
That makes sense. Steve, I'm sorry, Brian, but something just triggered in my mind. I've seen contractors out there, Steve, that when you talked about the insured hopefully paying their deductible. We've seen contractors that will say, hey, we'll take care of your deductible for you. Just hire us we'll work with your insurance company. We'll get everything taken care of, no problem. But are you still seeing that out there in the market?
Yeah, boy, you keep tossing me these great softballs. So in 2019, I devoted 6 months of my life to helping the Texas legislature pass a bill that made it very clear that in Texas, insureds must pay their deductible. A contractor cannot in any way waive, absorb, rebate, or any way help an insured avoid payment of their deductible. And we even added this language that an insurance company in Texas, prior to making an RCV holdback payment, has the right to request reasonable proof that the deductible was paid. So now we can go to the insured and says, hey, okay, you want your holdback? Show us your deductible check. And we should be doing that. Shame on any insurance company in Texas who's not requiring that, because if that was required all the time, what's going to happen now? The contractors waive the deductible. The insured can't get his RCV holdback because there's no proof of payment. You're either going to A, commit insurance fraud and make something up, or B, they've lost their ability to get the RCV holdback. Contractors don't want that to happen, so hopefully they'll stop doing it. So yeah, we need to make sure we're asking for reasonable proof the deductible was paid. Even in states that don't have a law like Texas, I think it's a fair request. Yeah. Now, the other part of your question is we can talk about contractors injecting themselves into the claim process. The never-ending UPA problem, the unauthorized practice of public adjusting. Big issue. Still a big issue. I'll tell you, I was in Austin yesterday at a legislative forum. Came up there. We really need help from the administrative agencies in our states to rein in the roofers doing that. And we need enforcement. We need state agencies, the departments of insurance to go after contractors for engaging in public adjusting without a license. So I encourage all of your members, when you have a contractor who's taken over the claim process improperly, turn them in, right? Bundle up all the emails, take your recordings of the calls, and turn it in the Department of Insurance and say that they are violating our public adjuster licensing statute, because we need to make example of more of these contractors.
Yeah, definitely a major issue. But there was something you mentioned that I wanted to touch base on before we to end here, and that's you mentioned a couple times the different public adjuster conferences and things you've been to. I want to hear a little bit more about the Steve Badger roast.
Oh, tomorrow is the big Steve Badger roast. So at one of the conferences, the Storm Restoration Contractor Conference that's taking place in Dallas this week, their closing event is the first ever industry roast. So all the contractors and public adjusters are there. They've selected an MC and 6 roasters, and they are going to have an hour and a half roast of me, the insurance industry guy, in front of hundreds of roofing contractors and PAs. And so we'll see how that goes. I've spent a lot of time preparing my counter roast, my response, because obviously I've watched a number of roasts like all of you, and you're supposed to do that. You can imagine I don't shy away from a stage. And so I've got a nice long roast of all of them and the industry in general going back at them. But I want to say this, because it's very important to me. I fight back really hard when people try to rip off my clients, when they're trying to rip off my insurance companies. But I also want everyone on the other side to know that I'm fair and I'm a fun guy to have a beer with. And those two things are important to me. There's legitimate disputes in claims, and we can have those disputes. But at the end of the day, we can work them out fairly and reasonably, and then we can all move forward. You know, in the legendary words of Patrick Swayze in the old Roadhouse movie, he said, "It's only a job. It's nothing personal." And I think I've reached that place with the other side, that they know that, hey, if you're not trying to rip off Badger's clients, then we're all going to get along fine and we can have a good time at a roast. So we'll see how it goes.
I'll be looking for searching YouTube here in a couple weeks to see if we get the Steve Badger roast out there.
I suspect they're filming it, and I understand it will be out there. And if it doesn't go too poorly for me, I'll be happy to post it on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, we're going to keep our eyes open for that. But thank you, Steve, for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah.
I always enjoy discussions with PLRB. I appreciate your support for the industry and your partnership with my law firm. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What can we take away from this scenario? Adjusters can verify claim history and ask the insured whether prior damage was actually fixed. Historical aerial imagery, PLRB weather reports, and permit records can help determine dates of damage. Some supplements can be submitted by companies not involved in the repairs and unknown to the insured. An adjuster can learn more by going to plrb.org. We have a recorded webinar on resolving high estimates and post-work supplementals, and I'll also include a link to Steve Badger's LinkedIn, so you can keep an eye out for the link to the Steve Badger roast video. I'll share those links in the show notes, and there you can also find a recap of the key points from this episode and links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and please give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story. We'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.